why I am so scared of bathrooms. First of all, I am sharing this because I think some people will find it interesting. Also, it makes me feel better about what happened, less alone. What I have written below is 100% true. I would really appreciate it if you would not make fun of it, since it was, and still is to this day, a traumatizing thing for me. Thanks. I have always been terrified of bathrooms, but this time, I've actually sat down with my mom to ask her if she's ever noticed anything from when I was a kid. And yes, she has. And it explains one of the most terrifying experiences I've had. We used to live in an apartment, but I would spend most days in my grandma's house, which wasn't far away at all. She basically raised me for the first few years of my life because my parents had just opened a business of their own and they were extremely busy. One day when I was around 2 years old, my grandma was babysitting me and she took me to her friend's house for lunch, which wasn't unusual. We had done that many times before. At some point, I asked to go to the bathroom and she came with me to help me. And according to her, as soon as I stepped on that bathroom, I freaked out and ran away screaming that there was a creepy-looking kid in there. Grandma said that there wasn't anyone in there and that the bathroom was normal, like it didn't have any paintings or anything that a 2-year-old would consider creepy. Just a simple and plain bathroom. When we went back to her house, she noticed I was avoiding the bathroom, so she reminded me that her bathroom was safe and that she would protect me if there was anything in there. So we went, and I freaked out again, saying that now the kid was in there. And of course, I had an accident right then and there. When my parents came to take me home, Grandma warned them that I had had a weird reaction to the bathroom, and I was refusing to talk to her about it. I would only repeat that there was a kid in there. When we arrived, my parents tried to calm me down and talk to me, but I was terrified. They both took me to the bathroom to show me that there was nothing in there, but I had the same reaction, screaming and crying and running away, all out of nowhere. I had been potty trained for a couple of months already, and I was comfortable with it. But they had to put diapers on me again because I refused to go inside there. They even had to bathe me in a small inflatable pool because I was so terrified. This went on for quite some time. When I turned 3, I felt fine going to the bathroom, but only if the door was open and an adult was waiting outside. Also, I could actually describe the creepy kid now, and according to my mom, I described him as a dwarf elf with huge eyes and small irises and pupils. He also had a messy dark beard and long matted hair. And he had a name too. His name was Ernest. I was basically describing a grown-up man in a kid's body. Obviously, my parents got worried and decided to take me to a psychologist to work on my fears. I also had trouble sleeping because I thought there were things in my room. My psychologist said that everything was fine and to do whatever helped soothe me, which was having all the bathroom lights on at night and sleeping with my TV on. And that helped. I stopped being afraid of the bathroom and stopped seeing him. I continued to have other experiences, but nothing as bad as Ernest. When I was 9, we moved into the house we currently live in, and my parents let me throw a big sleepover/birthday party with friends to celebrate. We were all ready to go to sleep, but I decided I needed to go to the bathroom. When I went, I saw what I hadn't seen for a few years, Ernest standing in the bathroom. I broke down and had a panic attack. All my friends came running and saw me sitting on the floor breathing as if I had ran 100 miles and shaking. They screamed and called my parents. They turned all the lights on, and we basically stayed up all night because I had also scared the other 9 girls that were there. After that, I stared hearing the voices in the bathroom, but I never saw Ernest again. And I hope I never do. I have no memory of seeing Ernest before I was 9, but when I saw him that night, I could feel a paralyzing fear, the kind of fear you feel when you recognize something that you have been trying to lock away. I don't remember ever talking to him, but I obviously somehow knew his name, and I know it gave off bad vibes. To be honest, I somehow thought it was just a nightmare, that what I saw that night never happened, but I still shake when I think of it. For God's sake, I'm even shaking now. It's uncontrollable, and it's so strong. Now that Mom has confirmed that it actually happened, I feel weird. It was April. It didn't feel like April after the amount of time that had passed, but it was April, nonetheless. There was a certain warmth to the air that brightened people's eyes during this bleak time. It wasn't hot, mind you, but simply warm, something that was needed to live in our cold and dormant spirits. It seemed like it was just March, which made the warmth all the more questionable. Peculiar for this time. In fact, March had just ended, mere hours before I arrived here. Before I arrived here, as you read these lines word by word, you're probably pondering where here is. I live in a city, a college town that has tried to keep up, but has still suffered. I left the city on the last day of March. It was raining when I bustled out of my apartment and into my mother's messy van. Bags surrounded me, cramping me into the car under their weight. I left the city on the last day of March. I was sick, or at least I thought I was. I had to quarantine, 2 weeks in isolation. I would have stayed at my apartment, but I had roommates, and I was courteous enough to pack some things and go so that they didn't have to worry about getting sick. My parents' house was as it always was, vibrant, active, warm, and something that was oddly comforting but unsettling at the same time. Maybe it was because the person I used to be lived in this house, survived in this house, existed in this house. I had changed so much since then, but something about being in the house, in my old bedroom, reliving everything that I once relived, it felt like some sort of deja vu that I couldn't quite remember, but couldn't quite shake. The first night, whether you'd like to call it the last night of March or the first night of April, I sat in bed a while, trying to entertain myself or lose myself in thought to take my ever-active mind off of my circumstances. It was depressing, the feeling of being trapped, but there was no escaping it. I couldn't try, even if I wanted to. I was shackled. At some point in the night, I remember, vaguely however, getting up and going to the bathroom. The clock read 3:13 a.m., which I only remembered due to the fact that I acknowledged that it was the witching hour. I know that it wasn't a dream. I remember getting up and walking. I unplugged my phone, brining it with me as a light, and took the short walk across the hallway into my old bathroom. I used to share it with my sister back when we lived here, but grew out of it and left it when I moved out. I barely remembered ever using it. There was always something ominous about being in my parents' house in the darkness and obscurity of night. Quite often, in fact, I remarked jokingly to my mother that it was a perfect slasher house and how a horror movie set within it would be perfectly eerie. There was something inexplainable about the energy. I never quite understood why. Even now, as an adult, my body still trembles as I get up out of bed and walk anywhere in the house in the dark. I made the short journey as my legs shook and my focus was set on being aware of my surroundings, and I entered the bathroom, turning on the lights and shutting and locking the door behind me as fast as I could. For a brief moment, I turned to face the mirror on the wall, directly across from where I was standing. Something was drawing me to it for some reason or another, but I didn't know what that reason was. In truth, I only knew that the reason simply existed. I stared into the mirror, seeing every part of myself as I did, and felt something indescribable. This energy was pulling me towards it, closer and closer, but I didn't know what it was or why. I barely knew what I was feeling besides the sensation of pulling. But the strange part was, it was a nostalgic feeling. I knew that I had felt the feeling before, but I had no idea why, when, or what it was. It was the strangest thing. I woke up in my bed the next day with no recollection of what happened after that. I remembered walking to the bathroom, starting in the mirror, being affected by it, and then nothingness. I knew it wasn't a dream. I had gotten up and walked there. I knew it. My phone was even unplugged from when I took it with me. I had no idea whatsoever of how I had gotten back into my bed, how I had fallen asleep, or how I had even gotten out of the bathroom. Strange, I thought to myself, but you're probably just tired. It was probably nothing. I didn't say anything about it. Though I thought about bringing it up to my mother and father, what good would that have done? The most I could do is ask if they had heard me get up last night, but I already knew that they were both long asleep. Quite honestly, after a few hours, I brushed it off and almost forgot that it had happened. The next night, though, the same thing happened. I woke up in the night, having to go to the bathroom, made my way there, petrified, in the darkness, and somehow wound up in my bed again the next morning, as if nothing had happened. I wondered if I was having recurring dreams, or maybe even sleepwalking, but no answer made sense. I couldn't brush it off after a few nights in a row. It was messing with my mind. I thought about what was happening every morning for prolonged amounts of time and wondered how I could stop it, but nothing worked. I took sleeping pills, which I normally use for my insomnia spells, but even still, I woke up, I was losing time. How does one lose time like that? It had never happened to me before under these circumstances. It was like I was blacked out drunk or something. I knew what happened to me up until a certain point in the night, and then everything stopped. I woke up the next morning safe in bed. I wanted to know what happened during the time I lost, but there was no way to get answers. A week had passed. That meant there was only 1 week left until I could go back to the city, back to my space. On that 7th night, I again woke up in the night. I looked at the clock again, and it still read 3:13 a.m. I had noticed this a few times now, and it had caught my attention as something else strange in my situation. As I felt more ill each day and needed more rest, I began to attribute these spells to possible hallucinations driven by my fever. I really convinced myself until the 7th night. I made my way across the hall in the darkness again, phone in hand as usual. 3:13 as usual. Odd sensation as usual. This time, however, I had a plan. I was sick of what I was going through each night. It was starting to affect me mentally. I was down, dreary, zombie-like. On top of having an illness, I was suffering greater in this way. It was sheer torture. I hit record on my phone, and the video started recording as I opened the door to the bathroom. I stood in there for a moment, feeling that same eerily nostalgic feeling, and then nothing. I woke up in my bed the next morning, like usual, with my phone next to me, unplugged as usual. Immediately, I rolled over and grabbed it, opening it as quickly as I could. I frantically typed in my passcode, and my camera app was still open. I clicked on the most recent video. I saw myself in the video holding the camera towards the mirror. I remembered doing that. Then, after a moment, there was a darkness, a dark shadow in the mirror. Immediately, the phone slammed down onto the floor, and I couldn't see anymore. The video stopped. I went back and forth over and over again to try to get a glimpse of the shadow in the mirror. It was a figure. I knew it was. After getting a perfect view on the screen, I was sure of this. I texted my sister that day, begging to come and stay with her on her couch. She asked why I couldn't just go home, but she already knew the answer. I took her question in response as a no and moved on. I felt like I was going crazy, but I knew that what I saw was real. Not only that, but it was taking a toll on me. I felt paranoid, crazy, and I was losing weight. I was pale as a ghost, and the bags under my eyes looked heavier than ever before. I kept losing my time, and it was driving me mad. That 8th night, I decided to get ahead of it. I went into the bathroom at midnight, once my parents were asleep, with my phone and waited. I stayed up those 3 hours, and I waited. Before I knew it, the time must have come, because I felt its presence. I knew it was there with me, watching me. I stood up, slowly, on my shaky legs and stared into the mirror. I stared as if I wanted it to know that I was aware of its presence. I took deep breaths in order to stable myself, but I felt more unstable than ever. That same nostalgic feeling came back to me, overtaking my body and making me feel like weak, vulnerable child again. Blood rushed through my veins, and I could feel my heart beating in every individual part of my body. The lights went off. The shadow appeared behind me in the reflection, and the moment it did, I remembered it. I knew this shadow. It had always been in the mirror here. I never recalled using the bathroom then, because I never remembered doing so. It always made sure of that. But after a moment of the shadow and I being aware of one another's presence, it happened again. I lost time. But this time, I didn't wake up in bed. I woke up on the floor of the bathroom in the dark. Groggily, I coughed and squinted my eyes as they adjusted to being open again. My mouth was dry and tasted horrible. I tried to chew my face a bit in an attempt to fix it, or even to recognize the taste, but it stayed. My body was sore and pained, and I felt a certain emptiness. After a moment, I turned my attention away from my immediate self and towards my surroundings. I tilted my head up slightly and saw my grotesque state. I was sprawled out on the bathroom floor, covered in my own vomit, which trailed all around me and into the toilet that sat near my feet. There was so much of it, as if I had emptied out my entire body somehow. I sat up in a panic and began to try to wipe it all off of me. My body was shaking, tears rushing to my eyes as I tried to understand what had happened. I felt a chill in the air right before the lights turned on again, and my eyes squinted, trying to adjust to this painful addition to my setting. I quickly shot my torso up and backed myself up against a wall, on the brink of being hysterical at this point. Silent tears ran down my face as my eyes darted around the room, looking for the shadow. I woke up in bed again. Immediately, I jumped out of bed and ran into the bathroom in order to prove my sanity to myself, to make sure that the scene that I knew I had surveyed was still there. But it wasn't. Everything was gone, every last bit of it. My body too was clean. My mouth wasn't dry and didn't taste horrendous. What happened in my lost time? I didn't go to the bathroom anymore at night. Not for the last few days of my stay. I noticed then that I wasn't losing weight as rapidly as I was before, nor was I feeling as anxious, paranoid, and overall insane. I felt somewhat rejuvenated, yes, but I was still aware. I knew that I had experienced something, but I also knew that I couldn't share that experience. But the worst part wasn't the secretive nature I had to have, but the fact that I knew that I had gone through it all before. After living it again, memories began to flood back. I knew now why I had claimed I never used that bathroom, why I didn't even remember using it. I was losing time, more time than my last encounters. Something in there was taking me over and making me sick, making me suffer. It drew me into the mirror as I stared at myself and took me over. All those years it had happened, but I had just suppressed it or written it off, or was simply unaware because I had lost so much time. I don't go in that bathroom anymore, not ever. I feel healthier now, happier. On my last day of quarantining, I sit here thinking about it and just how peculiar and horrifying it all was. I thought of all of the problems I had suffered while living in this house, all the times that I didn't truly feel okay, and remembered what I had experienced in the past weeks. Surely, there was something evil in there, something oppressive, something that wanted to make me suffer. While carrying this burden of knowledge, I decided to send a message to my sister. She and I were close, being only a year apart in age, and had shared many experiences together, just like we had shared the bathroom. The messages read as follows. Hey, quick question for you. I started, trying not to sound too certifiable right off the bat. What's up? She responded after a few minutes. I thought of how to phrase my next response. At Mom and Dad's house, did you ever see anything weird in the bathroom? What do you mean? She sent, immediately followed by, you mean our old bathroom, right? Yeah, I replied. Have you ever seen anything weird in there? You saw him too, didn't you? She said, really spooking me now. Him? I said, what do you mean him? The shadow, she typed. 2 words turned my entire world upside down. 2 words topped my heart from pulsing and froze my blood. My bones went stiff. My fingers were frozen in shock as my eyes stared at the 2 words, the shadow. I couldn't even think clearly, never mind respond in my state of shock. Luckily, she sent another message as my eyes were glued in terror to her response. I can't believe you saw him too. What are you talking about? I said, still shocked as terror filled my veins. I thought I must have been crazy all these years, she said. Did you lose time too? And woke up in my bed the next day as if it was nothing. She finished my thought before I could. My whole body was cold now. She saw the shadow too, she identified it. It wasn't in my head after all. I knew this the whole time, but I was sure of it now. Thinking on it, I began to remember blocking out the loss of time. Never waking up in the night, never using the bathroom, always feeling tired, meek, and vaguely ill. Always feeling a wave of discomfort and pain looking in the mirror. But I never truly understood why it was me, well, me and my sister, that the shadow robbed. I started going to a new school in the 2nd grade. The cafeteria was downstairs in the basement, and then there was a long, empty hallway that led to the 2 bathrooms. I remember the first time I went to the bathroom there. Nobody told me it was haunted, so on the first day of 2nd grade, I ventured down the hall to go to the bathroom. As I made my way towards it, I kept hearing this noise. Ooh. When I approached the doorway, so much negative energy hit me, and I knew not to go in there. I ran back to the cafeteria, told some girls about it, and they told me it was haunted. We were all terrified of this bathroom. The boys said their bathroom was fine, but that the girls' bathroom down there also freaked them out. It got so bad, we had to have the principal come talk to our class about it. Everyone knew it was haunted. Flash forward to 3rd grade. It was Halloween, and I was the first student in the classroom. Every Halloween, we had a parade outside where we marched around in our costumes. I began putting my costume on over my clothes and noticed a piece of paper folded up in my desk. It caught my eye. I don't know how to describe it, but it was folded strangely. I picked it up, unfolded it, and in a faint handwriting was, "If you dare go to the bathrooms downstairs, I kill you." I can't make this shit up. I was the first student in the room. The previous day, I left school in line with everybody else. Once more kids came into the classroom, I told my friends, and they were more scared than I was. They made me tell the teacher. You could tell she thought it was odd, but she crumpled up the paper and threw it away. And that's the last time I saw it. I went in the bathroom again, but only in large groups. We used to have a thing called field day, where we played outside all day at the end of the school year. One day on field day, me and about 10 other girls had to go to the bathroom, so we all teamed up and went to the one downstairs. I remember leaning up against the wall and feeling and hearing something, as if someone was banging on the wall with an axe. We all heard it, and it was uncomfortably loud. Also have to add that no one ever went in the last stall, but this day a girl did. It had cobwebs all over it and everything. Then one night, I was at the school for a concert. This was towards the end of 5th grade, so I was brave enough to go there myself. I was kind of curious. I went down to the hall, and as usual, the could be heard a mile away. I went into the bathroom, but I just kind of stood around and didn't actually go in a stall or anything. Suddenly, I just got scared and ran towards the door. But I was surprised when I bumped into a rather strange lady with long gray hair, a scarf partially covering her head and face. I just brushed by her and ran. Also, the lights have turned off when I was in that bathroom. The energy there is just insane. You feel in danger. Girls would cry and sob because they didn't want to have to use that bathroom. The loud, overwhelming oohs, the occasionally banging noises, the unused last stall that's door was always shut, the scratches on the mirror, the old poster that hung on the wall. It was just creepy. Maybe the note was a prank, but I do know that that bathroom I started working at this restaurant a few months ago, and the women's bathroom at my work had always given me bad, energy since I started working there. And today I feel I have finally think I'm actually right. So let me go over the evidence. For context, there is 3 stalls and a sink next to the door. At first, the second stall door would always be closed, and light would flicker in said stall every morning. I would always ask everyone who closed the stall, and everyone would say no. I also clean them every night and make sure leave it open. And every morning I come back, it's closed. On top of the light is flickering. Not that big of a deal, whatever. Which brings me to my second evidence. So I also changed the toilet paper in each of the stalls throughout the day, and I need a key to open them. This one time I was doing my job normally, and I went to the middle stall, and the light was on. Which was weird, but at the time, didn't think about it too much. I opened the paper holder, put the paper in and closed it, and made sure it was closed shut. And as soon as I go to walk out of the stall, it slammed down and open and the light cut off, scaring the shit out of me in the process. Still weird. You know, I have to lock it, so maybe I didn't do it all the way. Now, this leads me to my third evidence. So the heater is connected to the women's room for some reason, so it's super hot in there. Anyway, recently, every time I go to the middle stall, I always get a chill and get cold, even though everywhere else in the bathroom is very warm. That's not all. I also, more recently, been getting the feeling something is watching me, and I get all paranoid. My body also feels the urge to run every single time after I finish cleaning the middle stall. So that's all my experience for now. I will give updates if more happens. But what do you guys think? Am I just paranoid? Update. Came into work the other day and went to go clean like normal, and the middle stall door was closed. I remember it was the night before, so I went up and knocked, and obviously nothing. I asked my coworkers, and they all thought some kid crawled under and locked it. Me being questioning that, walked into the restroom and noticed there is nowhere near enough room for a child to do that. So I had to use my knife to basically lock-pick the door, and the stall was as empty. But weirdly, the toilet seat was up in the women's restroom. This might just be some teen prank. What do y'all think? Personally, I think it's another sign. I hate sleeping in the dark. I've always either slept with the TV on or with a little bit of light. I've had weird shit happen to me, like hearing voices or seeing shadow figures all my life, and to this day, I can't sleep without a bit of light because of experiences like this. Anyway, when I was a teen, me and my dad moved into a new place. I was adjusting pretty well to the new environment, but for some reason I was really unsettled by the bathroom that was connected to my room. No reason in particular, it just gave me the creeps. In an effort to both calm myself and give myself a source of light, I usually slept with the bathroom door open with the bathroom light on. My bathroom door is a few feet to the left of the foot end of my bed. One night, I was feeling really ballsy and decided to sleep with no light or TV. I switched them both off, bathroom door shut and all, and was like, yes, I can do this. I laid in bed, closed my eyes, and felt fine for a few minutes. Suddenly my eyes opened and I felt like I had to watch my bathroom door. I felt an intense feeling of dread and I didn't know why, but I couldn't look away from that goddamn door. And then I heard it open, that click out of place. I had lived in this place for a while at this point, and it had never done that before. My stomach sank and my heart started beating in my throat. I watched in horror as it slowly opened for what felt like a century. It opened just enough so that I could see the mirror above my bathroom sink, and I saw a faint shadow figure in the mirror. I stared and stared, terrified to look away in case whatever it was came for me. Finally, I jumped out of my bed and slammed the bathroom door shut and turned the main light on in my room. I managed to get some sleep after I put a bag with a weight on the doorknob of my bathroom, and plenty of hiding underneath my blanket with the light on. These stories don't have neat resolutions. They don't offer explanations. They simply present the facts as they were experienced and leave us to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. If there's a lesson here, maybe it's this. When you find a place that humans have abandoned, remember that we're not the only things that can occupy space. And some things don't need permits to be where they shouldn't be. Thank you for listening. If you have your own story of places where you weren't as alone as you thought, I'd invite you to share it. Sometimes the telling helps, sometimes it doesn't, but the stories deserve to be heard. Sleep well.